Leaving Parrish Hall, we walk towards the Rose Garden. It is named for Elizabeth Powell Bond, the first dean of Swarthmore College, appointed in 1886. Born in 1846, she was a little too young to have been an active participant in the anti-slavery movement, but she serves as a bridge between the abolitionist generation and 20th century anti-racism activism. Her older brother, Aaron M. Powell, was editor of the National Anti-Slavery Standard, and so she grew up surrounded by abolitionists. Bond was with William Lloyd Garrison and Frederick Douglass on Emancipation Day. She also knew and corresponded closely with Louisa May Alcott and Ralph Waldo Emerson. Having witnessed the feat of abolition accomplished, Elizabeth Powell Bond understood it was not enough. She continued to speak out about the importance of racial equality throughout her life. In her last baccalaureate address as Dean of Swarthmore College in 1909, Bond spoke about race, saying, "Our own white race is responsible for the race hatred that is festering in our nation." Bond pushed her white listeners to understand that emancipation did not reach the root of the matter, could not be the act of atonement. In the early 20th century, Bond was vocal in the anti-lynching movement and was an active member of the Race Relations Committee of Philadelphia yearly meeting. This brings us to our next topic, so let's head towards the Friends Meeting House.
The Swarthmore Friends Meeting House was the site of the first annual conference of the Institute on Race Relations in July 1933. This gathering, organized by the Race Relations Committee of Philadelphia yearly meeting, boasted a distinguished biracial faculty and student body. Participants included Melville Herskovitz, Franz Boas, E. Franklin Frazier, James Weldon Johnson, and W.E.B. Du Bois. It's appropriate that Du Bois came to Swarthmore in 1933. Susan Parrish Wharton, niece of Swarthmore's first president, Edward Parrish, had instigated bringing Du Bois to Philadelphia for his 1899 seminal work, The Philadelphia Negro. Swarthmore President Frank Adelote and famous anthropologist Franz Boas, both white, were the honorary chairman for the Institute. The Institute of Race Relations was a 6-week conference that occurred on Swarthmore's campus during the summer. It was a program for educators, social workers, labor leaders, students, and employers. One of the other featured speakers at the Institute was Jesse H. Holmes, a white professor at Swarthmore College. Interestingly, the Jesse Holmes Scholarship, established to honor Holmes's career, is not housed at Swarthmore College, where he taught, but at Howard University. Embarrassingly, while the college held the Institute on campus, there were no enrolled African American students or faculty on campus at that time. The fall after the first institute, George Arnold, a black West Philadelphia high school graduate who was nominated by his school for a scholarship, was denied admittance to Swarthmore. The dean at the time explained that having him enrolled would, quote, create too many difficulties, unquote, because Swarthmore was coeducational. In other words, fear of interracial romance. Swarthmore administrators advocated to place Arnold at Dartmouth with a large scholarship instead.
From here, we'll continue towards the Black Cultural Center, also known as the Robinson House or the House, an important locus for Black community on campus today. Many of Swarthmore's founders gave money to or were otherwise involved in assisting schools that educated African Americans, but they were separate schools. A great example is the Institute for Colored Youth, now Cheyney University, founded by Quakers in the 1830s. Edward Parrish lectured at the Institute. Another example is the Lang Normal and Industrial School in South Carolina, a school for African American children established after the Civil War. The school is named for Henry M. Lang, treasurer of Swarthmore College in the 1860s. But these are examples of Swarthmore associates supporting separate schools for people of color, rather than admitting them to Swarthmore. It wasn't until fall 1943 that the first African Americans were allowed to enroll at Swarthmore, Gloria Clement and Dorothea May Kopczynski. They were shortly followed by Norman Matlock, who would become Swarthmore's first black varsity athlete, and others, including the son of NAACP Executive Secretary Walter White. Still, only a handful of people of color could be found on campus through the 1960s. In 1969, as many of you may know, members of SAS, the Swarthmore African American Student Society, staged a sit-in the admissions office to advocate for increased enrollment of black students, hiring black faculty and administrators, and more. As a result of this activism, the college agreed to a number of changes. In 1970, the first black faculty member, Catherine Morgan, was hired, and a Black Studies program was approved. The Robinson House was also designated as the Black Cultural Center. This is not an uncomplicated story of continuous progress. Black students, faculty, and staff have faced racism and setbacks throughout the decades. Even today, Swarthmore is an imperfect institution, and we all grapple with the challenges of a community striving for equity and inclusivity in a world permeated with structural racism. However, the 2019-2020 academic year was the 50th anniversary of the BCC and the year of celebrating Black excellence. It's a wonderful time for reflecting on the legacies of our founders and imagining a better future.